Let's talk about belly fat. Not the kind you can pinch. I'm talking about the dangerous, hormone-disrupting, inflammation-triggering visceral fat that wraps around your organs and drives insulin resistance. If you want to burn belly fat quickly on keto, you don't just eat low carb. You choose foods that lower insulin, improve mitochondrial function, reduce inflammation, and help your body access stored fat. In today's video, I'm giving you 10 powerful keto foods that do exactly that, and I'll show you how to use them in real life. They told you it was about calories. Eat less, move more, try harder, push through the hunger. Count every bite. But what if I told you that the real reason your belly fat won't budge has almost nothing to do with calories, and almost everything to do with one powerful hormone silently controlling your metabolism every second of the day? That hormone is insulin. And if insulin is high, you are not burning belly fat. Period. You can be in the gym for an hour. You can cut your portions in half. You can suffer through hunger. But if insulin remains elevated, your body is biologically locked in fat storage mode. Insulin is not a bad hormone. It's life-saving. Every time you eat carbohydrates, insulin rises to move glucose out of your bloodstream and into your cells. Without it, blood sugar would climb to dangerous levels. But here's the problem modern life has created. Insulin is no longer rising occasionally. It's rising constantly. Breakfast cereal, mid-morning snack, sweetened coffee, sandwich lunch, afternoon healthy granola bar, pasta dinner, late night treat. Every spike tells your body the same message. Store energy, store fat, especially around the belly. And that belly fat isn't just sitting under your skin. The most dangerous type is visceral fat, the fat that wraps around your liver, pancreas, and intestines. It behaves like an inflammatory organ. It releases cytokines that increase inflammation. It interferes with insulin signaling. It makes the next insulin spike even worse. It becomes a vicious cycle. Research consistently shows that elevated insulin levels are strongly associated with increased visceral fat accumulation. In fact, people with insulin resistance can have normal calorie intake and still gain abdominal fat because their hormonal environment favors storage over burning. Let that sink in. Your body doesn't decide to burn fat based on willpower. It decides based on hormones. When insulin is high, your fat cells receive a clear command: do not release stored fat. When insulin drops, an entirely different message is sent. Energy is needed. Release fat. That shift from storage mode to burning mode is the metabolic switch most people never flip. Here's the shocking truth. You cannot effectively burn body fat and store body fat at the same time. Biochemically, those pathways oppose each other. Insulin is the switch. Studies on low-carbohydrate ketogenic diets repeatedly show significant reductions in fasting insulin levels. As insulin drops, the body increases lipolysis, the breakdown of stored fat, and increases fat oxidation. That's not magic. That's physiology. When carbohydrates are reduced and insulin falls, your liver begins producing ketones. Ketones are not a trend. They are an ancient survival mechanism. They signal that the body is now running on fat. And when the body runs on fat, visceral fat begins to shrink. Clinical research has demonstrated that carbohydrate restriction can reduce visceral fat even when total calorie intake is not drastically restricted. Why? Because insulin is no longer constantly elevated. The hormonal brake on fat burning is released. Think about that. For years, people have blamed themselves. I must be lazy. I must not have enough discipline. Meanwhile, their biology was working against them. Chronic high insulin doesn't just block fat burning. It increases hunger. It drives cravings. It creates energy crashes. It makes you feel like you need another snack just to function. That's not weakness. That's blood sugar instability. When insulin spikes, blood glucose eventually drops. When glucose drops quickly, your brain perceives an energy emergency. Cravings surge, especially for fast carbohydrates. This is why high-carb, low-fat diets often lead to cycles of restriction and overeating. It's hormonal turbulence. Now imagine something different. You wake up, you eat a meal that barely moves insulin, protein, healthy fats, minimal carbohydrates. Blood sugar remains stable. Insulin rises slightly, then falls quickly. No crash, no urgent hunger. Hours pass and you're not thinking about food. That stability is not just comfortable, it's metabolically transformative. Lower insulin allows hormone-sensitive lipase, the enzyme responsible for breaking down stored fat, to activate. Stored triglycerides inside fat cells are broken into free fatty acids. Those fatty acids are transported to the liver and muscles to be burned for energy. This is belly fat being used as fuel. Over time, fasting insulin levels drop. Insulin sensitivity improves. The pancreas doesn't need to pump out as much insulin to manage blood sugar. The metabolic system calms down. And here's where it becomes even more powerful. Visceral fat itself contributes to insulin resistance. So as visceral fat decreases, insulin sensitivity improves further. It becomes a positive cycle instead of a destructive one. Lower insulin leads to less belly fat. Less belly fat leads to better insulin sensitivity. Better insulin sensitivity leads to lower insulin. The cycle reverses. This is why people who shift to an insulin-lowering dietary pattern often notice that their waist circumference decreases even before the scale dramatically changes. Visceral fat is metabolically active. When insulin drops, it responds quickly. It's not about starving, it's about signaling. When insulin remains chronically elevated, the body interprets that as abundance. Store energy. Protect reserves. When insulin falls for sustained periods, the body interprets that as a need to access stored energy. Burn. This is not a hack. This is human physiology shaped over thousands of years. Our ancestors did not eat every 3 hours. They did not consume refined carbohydrates at every meal. Insulin rose and fell naturally. Modern eating patterns flattened that rhythm. The constant grazing, the hidden sugars, the refined starches, the sweetened drinks, even healthy processed foods can keep insulin elevated far more than most people realize. And the result? A generation struggling with abdominal obesity, metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, and type 2 diabetes at unprecedented rates. The World Health Organization estimates that hundreds of millions of people worldwide are living with diabetes, and many more with undiagnosed insulin resistance. Visceral fat is one of the strongest visible warning signs. But here's the empowering part. Insulin is responsive. It is not fixed. It changes based on what you eat, how often you eat, and how metabolically flexible your body becomes. Reduce refined carbohydrates. Increase nutrient-dense protein. Use healthy fats strategically. Allow time between meals for insulin to fall. Over time, fasting insulin levels improve. And when insulin improves, belly fat is no longer protected. It becomes available. Available to be burned, available to be transformed into energy, available to disappear. The story was never about eating less and suffering more. It was about understanding the hormonal language of your body. Insulin is the key. Lower the signal to store, and the body remembers how to burn. And once that switch flips, once your metabolism shifts from sugar dependency to fat adaptation, you are no longer fighting your biology. You are working with it. That's when real change begins. Let's go. For decades, we were told food is just fuel. Calories in, calories out, numbers on a label, math on a treadmill. But what if food is not just fuel? What if every bite you take is a biological instruction, a chemical signal, a message that tells your body to heal or to store, to burn or to break down? Food is not just energy. Food is information. The moment you swallow a bite of food, a hormonal symphony begins. Enzymes activate. Hormones rise and fall. Genes switch on and off. Your metabolism listens carefully to what you just ate and adjusts accordingly. This is not philosophy. This is molecular biology. Nutritional science has repeatedly shown that macronutrients trigger completely different hormonal responses. Protein stimulates glucagon and supports muscle preservation. Healthy fats barely raise insulin. Refined carbohydrates can spike insulin dramatically within minutes. Each response creates a different metabolic outcome. So when someone says, a calorie is a calorie, they are ignoring the hormonal consequences of that calorie. 200 calories of sugar and 200 calories of salmon do not create the same hormonal environment. One spikes insulin, increases fat storage, and may trigger hunger again within hours. The other stabilizes blood sugar, supports satiety hormones like peptide YY, and nourishes mitochondria, the energy factories inside your cells. That difference is everything. Mitochondria determine how efficiently you burn fat. When they are overloaded with constant glucose exposure, oxidative stress increases. Inflammation rises, insulin resistance worsens. But when carbohydrates are reduced and healthy fats are prioritized, mitochondria adapt. They increase their ability to oxidize fat. This process is called metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility is the ability to switch between burning glucose and burning fat efficiently. Many people have lost this ability. Years of high carb, ultra processed diets have trained their bodies to rely almost exclusively on sugar. When sugar runs low, energy crashes, cravings surge, fatigue sets in. This is not a lack of willpower. It is a loss of metabolic flexibility. But here is where food becomes medicine. When you consistently choose nutrient-dense, insulin-lowering foods, eggs rich in choline, wild-caught fish loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, olive oil abundant in polyphenols, grass-fed beef dense with B vitamins and iron, you are not just eating keto. You are rebuilding cellular function. Omega-3 fatty acids have been shown to reduce inflammatory markers like CRP and improve insulin sensitivity. Chronic inflammation is strongly linked to visceral fat accumulation. Lower inflammation improves fat oxidation. That is not theory. That is documented in metabolic research. Magnesium-rich leafy greens support hundreds of enzymatic reactions, including those involved in glucose regulation. Studies show that magnesium deficiency is associated with increased risk of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. When you add spinach sautéed in olive oil to your plate, you are not just adding volume. You are restoring biochemical balance. Choline from egg yolks supports liver function and helps prevent fat accumulation in the liver. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is now one of the most common metabolic disorders worldwide, closely linked to insulin resistance. Supporting liver fat metabolism directly influences abdominal fat reduction. Medium-chain triglycerides, found in coconut oil and MCT oil, bypass traditional fat digestion pathways and are rapidly converted into ketones. Ketones are not just an alternative fuel, they are signaling molecules. Research suggests ketones may reduce oxidative stress, improve mitochondrial efficiency, and even influence gene expression related to metabolism. Think about that. Food influencing gene expression. This field is called nutrigenomics, the study of how nutrients affect the way genes behave. Certain compounds in whole foods can activate pathways that reduce inflammation, enhance fat burning, and improve insulin signaling. When you remove ultra-processed foods and replace them with whole, nutrient-dense fats and proteins, you are not restricting. You are reprogramming, and the body responds. Clinical studies on low-carbohydrate, ketogenic dietary patterns consistently demonstrate reductions in visceral fat, improvements in triglycerides, increases in HDL cholesterol, and better glycemic control. In many cases, participants report decreased hunger despite eating fewer calories naturally. That is the power of hormonal alignment. Satiety hormones like leptin and ghrelin begin to normalize when blood sugar stabilizes. Instead of fighting cravings all day, people often experience something unfamiliar, calm. No constant food noise, no obsessive hunger, just steady energy. This is why food as medicine is not about perfection. It is about consistency. When insulin remains low for sustained periods, fat cells are no longer under constant command to store energy. Lipolysis increases. Stored triglycerides are broken down into fatty acids and used for fuel. The body transitions from sugar dependency to fat adaptation. Fat adaptation changes everything. Energy becomes stable. Brain fog often clears. Many report improved focus and cognitive performance, likely due to ketones providing a steady fuel source for the brain. Unlike glucose, which fluctuates rapidly, ketones deliver consistent energy. The brain consumes approximately 20% of the body's energy at rest. When that energy supply stabilizes, mental clarity often follows. But the transformation goes deeper than weight. Improved insulin sensitivity reduces the risk of metabolic syndrome. Lower triglycerides reduce cardiovascular risk factors. Reduced visceral fat lowers inflammatory signaling throughout the body. These changes are not cosmetic. They are protective. And yet, modern food culture has blurred the line between nourishment and stimulation. Hyperpalatable processed foods are engineered to override satiety signals. They combine refined carbohydrates, industrial seed oils, and artificial additives designed to keep you eating beyond fullness. That is not nourishment. That is biochemical manipulation. When you shift back to whole, unprocessed, nutrient-dense foods, your hormones begin to recalibrate. Hunger becomes predictable. Fullness becomes trustworthy. Energy becomes stable. Food stops being the enemy and becomes the solution. But here is the part most people miss. This transformation does not happen overnight. Mitochondria need time to adapt. Enzymes involved in fat oxidation increase gradually. Insulin sensitivity improves progressively. Consistency is what allows the biology to reset. Every meal is a vote for inflammation or healing, a vote for storage or burning, a vote for chaos or stability, and the body is always counting. When you understand that food is metabolic medicine, you stop asking, how many calories is this? And start asking, what is this teaching my hormones to do? Is it spiking insulin unnecessarily? Is it providing essential micronutrients? Is it supporting fat oxidation? Is it calming inflammation? Those questions shift everything. Because when food aligns with physiology, the body often does what it was designed to do all along: regulate weight, stabilize energy, and protect vital organs. The tragedy is not that people lack discipline. The tragedy is that they were never taught how powerful food truly is. Not as comfort, not as reward, not as punishment, but as information, as instruction, as medicine. And when you begin to eat with that understanding, when you consistently choose foods that lower insulin, nourish mitochondria, and reduce inflammation, you are not dieting. You are restoring. You are rebuilding. You are allowing your biology to remember how to burn fat, how to stabilize energy, how to function without constant crisis. That is not a trend. That is a return to metabolic sanity. And once your body experiences that alignment, once hunger quiets, energy steadies, and visceral fat begins to release, you realize something profound. The power was never in restriction. The power was in understanding what your food was saying to your body and choosing to send a different message.